Ladies and gentlemen, this is Daniel Umstead, host of the RNG Radio Show. I'm really just excited about the guests that come on to the platform. I've got different walks of life. I got coaches, I've got yoga instructors, I've had lawyers, I've had chefs, and I got superstars like the one I'm about to bring to you today. But before we get into the questions and answers that she's about to provide, let me read to your bio. So, as a child, my guest spent years facing many forms of abuse. In addition to the physical and verbal abuse, she also faced sexual abuse while in the care of her mother, where she would be a form of payment to support her mother's drug addiction. After attempting to take her own life in 1989, when Denise was 14 years old, she was brought to a nonprofit shelter for runaway and abused kids. It was there that she learned how to change the trajectory of her life and the horror she was born into. The love and support she received led her to the success story she is today. Today, my guest shares her experiences facing abuse and how she found power and resiliency in the smallest moments of hope. As she quotes, "Moments are measured in seconds or minutes. They are measured in the lifetime that they are held." Her mission is to inspire others to find their voice and the strength within the moments of hope to write their own story. Her story was also featured in the book Listen, a collection of stories, drawings, and poems from youth currently in the foster care system and adult survivors from around the world. She is also a special needs advocate and youth advocate, and she sits on the board of directors for Anchor House, Inc., the Trenton, New Jersey nonprofit shelter that helped her go from being just something to becoming someone. When she isn't speaking, she enjoys spending time with her husband and children, and she's currently working on a book about 30-second moments, which is a tribute to the teachers and counselors who helped her become the woman she is today. Ladies and gentlemen, Denise Bard. Denise, thank you so much for coming on. It's not a subject nobody wants to talk about or even share, but when people hear the story of somebody breaking through, somebody surviving, they become stronger, and in turn, we help create these amazing journeys for others because they're like, wait, Denise did it, I can do this. Yeah. Denise faced this battle and struggle, I can do this. So starting off, Denise, tell me, we'll dive into the story, let's go about your background, what even brought you to even wanting to speak about your background and share it with others?
Yeah, so I guess I should start out by saying why. You hear the people talk about, your story is someone else's survival guide. Well, that kind of hit home. So obviously I wanted to talk about that. Other reasons, to be honest with you, I heard, or I didn't hear, I was watching social media like we always do, and, scrolling TikTok. I'm a scroller, now I'm a doer, but I came across this young woman's TikTok, and, it was just the picture of her in her car, very upset, music in the background, and across the screen was written that she was a payment for her mother's drug addiction, and how embarrassed she was, and how, just alone she felt. And it was really then and there that I'd been speaking, but I really came forth with all of my story, the things that maybe I sheltered a little bit and kind of kept quiet. It was that moment that it was like, my story needs to be told, because I think I wish I had somebody else tell me the same story. So I was a product of two drug addicted teens, 1975. And I don't like to use raised, because I have these other people who raised me, but I was brought into my maternal side of the family, and that's where I lived. And that side had already been plagued with dysfunction and abuse. So I was just an added thing to the already mess that was happening. I did spend back and forth from the time I was 4 up until probably about 17, back and forth in kinship care. And anytime I was with my mother, there was a lot of uncertainty, to the point where, where are we staying? Where are we eating? Who am I going to be around? And it just was consuming of every kind of abuse. I faced it all. And as you said in the intro, I was a form of payment. She would take me to places I should never have been taken, and things were allowed that should never have been allowed. Now, when I spent my time in kinship care, most of the time I was with my grandmother, and her abuse was very psychological. And so that messes with you just as much. Sometimes I feel like you have that combination. But that's the beginning. And it grew over time. And then by the time I was 12, my mom got full custody of me back. She had been in and out of rehabs for my whole younger life. And at 12, I guess she proved to the courts that she can have me. And which is very upsetting because, and when I went back to live with her, it was 2 years and I just was done. And so at 14, I woke up one morning and I was like, I'm out. I was so just broken. And so one morning I just went into our medicine cabinet, because by that time she wasn't on cocaine or anymore. She was now on prescription drugs. I think sometimes this happens more often than not. And I took a bunch of her pills. I crushed them up in water and I started to drink. And it was after that first sip that I stopped. And I share this where people will ask me, why did you stop? Were you afraid? Did you change your mind? I changed my mind because I realized that my mother and all of those, my grandmother would play victim, and they weren't the victim. I was the victim, and I was tired of everybody else playing victim and me, being the person that did it all to them. So I went to my bus stop afterwards, and I told a friend of mine who I knew she was going to tell my school. So it was kind of like, go ahead, get in there. And long story, school called my mom, and she came in as victim, and I'm not going home. Just take me somewhere, but I will not go home. I refused. And that led me to Anchor House. And so, it was quite a journey up until that point, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of different abuses. I think a lot of times our psychological can sometimes, I know this may be different for everybody, but sometimes that psychological gets you more than the physical. Like I was able to cope with physical because it's just something where I knew I can get through. I had my own coping skills. But you could never get away from that psychological aspect where you're constantly being degraded. You're constantly being told that you're at fault for everything, and that, you're just nothing. And, I hate you and I wish you were someone else. And that's where I talk about going from something, because I went into Anchor House as just something. I was something to use for anger, to get your rage and frustration out on. And when my mom would go through those drug withdrawals, especially from cocaine, when I tell you the look on her face and in her eyes, it's searing, and it's like looking the devil in the eyes. And I've had a few people also say, that is exactly how I felt when the withdrawal went. And so there in itself lies that connection with other survivors and people. And I also share these stories too, because there are people like you'll hear with Anchor House who don't maybe understand the impact, the true impact that they do, because, they're only hearing so much of our story that we will share, that we never really open up and say everything. That now as an adult, as I share everything, I kind of put it all out there. I mean, my friend said I'm like the sharer of vulnerability. And I think that that's important though, right? Because when you're a little hesitant as to sharing everything, you're not sharing and being your true self. But it takes time to get to this point. Like it took me time to get where I'm at today to say, oh, okay. But I tell you, that girl's video, and I was probably like very late teens, early 20s, man, that just kind of hit me and pushed me to talk more, to share and open up more of my story than that little bits and pieces that I did. But yeah, I went into Anchor House, and I know you're from the Philadelphia area, right?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, East Philly.
So right across the border is Trenton, lovely town. I grew up in it. There's a shelter for runaway, abused, and homeless youth, and Anchor House are down in right in the Trenton, New Jersey. And I remember being taken there that day, and I have to tell you, it opened up in 1973. Oh God, I'm gonna be dead for not remembering my years. Or 1978. And it opened up because of a group of citizens that were concerned about these youth and runaways, and they're on the streets. So they opened up this, it's an old nun, nun quarter. I can't even think of it. Not the rectory, the convent. They converted a convent, which here's a funny story. It's next to Trenton State Prison. So your back window faces that prison. It's kind of, I laugh at it, as a joke. But they opened this place and finally had a place for kids like myself to go. And so when you're coming from the environment that I was coming from, walking into Anchor House was definitely life-changing. When everybody remembers their first day in there. I've connected with younger generations, a good friend now that I've met over the summertime, and we keep in touch. He's, I think, 26. So I'm old enough to be his mom, but he remembers his first day. And I think that that's the difference when you're going through all this abuse and you finally come to a place where you are completely safe. You remember those moments, right? So I remember walking into Anchor House, and I remember taking a breath, and I know constantly, I go on a lot of podcasts and we talk about things, radio or whatever. And I say the same exact thing because it was like I took this breath, and I remember, wow, it was just like the biggest weight came off of me, and it was absolute safety right from the get-go. It's like your gut feeling telling you this is where you need to be. This is the place that, you're safe here. You can be you here. So yeah, I mean, I can continue. I could talk for hours about Anchor House and everything.
No. I love that. Now, because of, your story that you shared on countless podcasts, what can you attest to, I guess, your achievements, along this journey of being able to share, being able to open up? I know that you have a website as well,
I
which
do.
to share, but can you point out some of the achievements, or even people just coming back to you thank you so much for sharing your story. I was able to do X, Y, and Z, or because I had went on your website, I'm now able to do ABC. Can you speak more into that?
Yeah, sure. And my website is always going through changes, so I'll say that. I'm growing with it. Let's just say that. Yeah, I think a couple things have gone on since this, which is great. Yes, I've had people come up or send me messages, emails, DMs on Instagram. We just started doing TikTok, which is new for me because I'm usually a scroller. So now I'm content creator, which is kind of scary. But I've had a few people message me and just say thank you. Thank you for just sharing that. Kind of gave them the ability to, again, not feel so alone, that there is someone else out there. I'm down to earth. You could see I wear t-shirts and sweatshirts. When I'm relatable. That's the best word I can say. I'm very relatable. So I think that really connects with a lot of survivors. But I also have to say this. I I talk about this, and I could share too, the the people that impacted me. So my caseworker, Michelle, who is still in my life since I was 14, this woman from Anchor House is still in my life. I don't know how, because sometimes I know I've driven her so crazy, yet she's never left. But it's great because she knows the impact she's made on me. And the different teachers that had come into my life after learning things, one of the things that Michelle taught me was to, in a nutshell, shift my focus. I was so constantly focused with the abuse and all the negative, which is perfectly fine. She was like, I'm not asking you to change your perspective at all. Sometimes we can't do that. But you can look around and find all these positive people. For me, they were my teachers. What's wonderful about that were these 30-second moments, and I talk about that a lot because that's my whole thing. A teacher, people in different positions don't need a lot of time. I had a teacher friend say to me, "We just don't have enough time." I'm like, "You don't need time. All you need is 30 seconds." So these women who gave me these 30 seconds to help me grow as a person, as a woman, as being in marriage, being a mother, like all these little things all came from these women. I am so happy that I have been able to give that back, to tell them, by speaking. They've heard my story and they're like, I didn't know. Like, I've had a number of them say, "I'm so sorry, I didn't know." I'm like, it's okay, because what you gave to me is so much more. Do you know what I mean? So speaking has helped me to connect with a lot of the teachers I've had, or the women who've come into my life in different periods of time. So I think that that's one of the greatest things I have, getting the feedback that I do by speaking, and especially to teachers. I love it. Like, my passion is to really open the eyes of teachers to see that, like I told my friend, you don't have to have a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of time to connect and really leave a legacy behind with just 30 seconds. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey, and I'm excited to see where it continues to go. I've had a lot of people contacting me, and which is wonderful, because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just my story. But no, it's been great. It's really been great.
I love that. I love that. And just to want to sidetrack here real quick, because
Sure.
we all have our good days, we all have our bad
Yeah.
days. And, we all have our ugly days, and sometimes you're going to need more than 30 seconds to get through these. And I'm peeking into our prior conversation that we had, because I want folks to listen as well. How do you keep going during those ugly days? During those days that you're just like, oh my gosh, either something from the past or even something work related, or, I have a teenager myself. Sometimes I want to strangle him. I'm not, but,
I'm there. I have kids too.
reasons
Um,
like,
yeah. Yeah.
so to wrap it around, what keeps you motivated? What keeps you, going, during those bad rainy days, even when it may be bright outside?
Again, like I go around in circles and I talk about those moments. They have built the resiliency for me, and I just have taken them through and through into my adult life. But there's a number of things, obviously, three particular moments, and I share it only because you can understand where I use it in my life today, because I use these things even to today. I'm 48 and I still use them. Aside from my wonderful case manager who showed me absolute conditional love, which is on those days where, even though I have the most incredible husband, the incredible kids, there are days where you just don't feel something, and not because they're doing it to you, but we get that loneliness inside. And I reflect back to those incredible bear hugs that she gave me, and just the feeling of being unconditionally loved. And again, not because my husband doesn't. I mean, it's just a different mindset for me. I get days where like I just don't feel like say, you don't know why you're here, you don't know different things. I had a teacher who she was my 8th grade math teacher. I sucked at math, but she was my favorite teacher. And one day somebody came in to visit her, and she actually called me over from my locker and she introduced me to him. And I could play the minute by minute out to you, but I'm going to save time. She introduced me to him as, this is my Denise. And so that was my first time feeling wanted, feeling like I belong. Right. And so on these days, and again, I take them with me, because on these days where you're like, where's my purpose? What am I doing? I don't know where I'm, supposed to be. And again, love my marriage, love my kids. But I think when you've had trauma or some type of, hardship, those things still happen. So I reflect back to that. And that helps me. So these little things, like a coach who, pointed out that she wanted to take me under her wings, made me feel like I mattered. Like, gosh, somebody's invested in me. A high school teacher spending time just asking me how I'm doing, which again, like I reflect back to those specific moments, but even more so as I've become a motivational speaker. There are motivational speakers who motivate me. I hear them in the back of my head. So Les Brown is an incredible speaker. I'm sure you've heard of him. If not, you need to go hear of him. And when he's having a bad day, he said, I don't call it a bad day. I call it a character building day. And as soon as I started doing that for myself, I found that my entire day wasn't a bad day, that I actually changed the way I felt about different things and thought, I'm just building character. And it's funny because I say it to my daughter all the time. She's like, oh my God, if this day, I said, it's building character. And like she said the other day, I have enough character. I don't need to build anymore. But, and then another thing, what keeps me going is a commencement speech that Denzel Washington gave. And he talked about failure. And every day we face these, I don't know if you do, where you feel like, am I failing? Like, what am I doing? Especially in this field of speaking, it's, you're crazy. You get scared because you're like, do people think weird about me? Do people saying things about me? Yes. And so he said in this speech in a roundabout way, failure is part of success. And I'll never fall backwards. I'm going to fall forwards. And so every time I get to those days where I'm like, what am I doing? Second guessing everything. I just keep going, fall forward, fall forward, fall forward. And it's okay for me to fail that day. Like, it's okay if because it doesn't mean it's over. It just means I got another chance tomorrow. I'm going to get up and I'm going to try it again. So those are the things that I literally take. And I say we all had those 30-second moments. So I always say, if you've had something in your life that made you feel some way, it's not just, oh, I got engaged. No, like it made you feel something. When you're having that bad day, reflect back to that moment because it made you happy. It made you feel some way where you just kind of took a breath and you were like, okay, I can do this. And I think that that's so important to find those little moments. You know what I mean? Even like to today, we are presented with these moments of opportunities today. So on those bad days, while I'm reflecting on everything to try to get over the next thing, I do try to find those little moments in the day just to, like, something will make me smile. Well, I'm going to stick in that smile, even when something happens to me that day and it's triggering. I'm going to go, yeah, but earlier today I had this smile, or yesterday, do you remember yesterday? I think it's just about shifting your focus on taking yourself out of that bad day to character building day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always say, you have to shift the focus. That's the only way. We all have an opportunity, or we have the choice. We can't always change the perspective on a day, like, or perspective on something that's happening to us, but we always have a choice to shift our focus. You always can look somewhere else. So I think, I know I'm like spewed a lot here, but I think on those days, you just really need to remind yourself of those moments, because those moments got you to where you are today. So, it's a testament to how far you've come.
Love that. Love that. And Denise, as we're wrapping up here, where can folks find you at on social media?
Well, I have obviously my website is denisebard.com. I am on Instagram. I think I have it as 30-second moments. And then on TikTok, Denise Bard. It's so funny because I had to redo some of my I'm gonna look to make sure, because I had to redo some of my my stuff, and I don't want to give you the wrong like place and you're going somewhere and goes, that's not her.
Like, that's not the
So
dude. That
it's
was
at Denise Bard, and it's 30-second moments. I think if you look up 30-second moments, because that's my tag, you'll find that there too. So it's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Denise Bard. So, and when you go to my other, like my website, will get connected to everywhere. So, and DM me there or message me right on the website.
Love that, love that. And then talk about the book. You had mentioned, or I should say I had mentioned in the bio book, 30-second moments. When should we expect to either see the release, or more importantly, what should you want folks to take out of the book once it is released?
So it has been released. It's been out since I believe it's 2018. It's the stories we take with us from home to home. And Nathaniel Malatak, I know I'm butchering his name, so I apologize. He and his wife have done these a docuseries in a way. They're called Removed, the movie, and it basically talks about kids in foster care or wherever they're aging out in the system, and documents those different things. So they decided to pull a collection of stories everybody submitted, and make a book, like a tabletop book. It's not like chapter, but it's a tabletop book, 100 and something pages, maybe, or 200 pages, something of that sort. And it's a collection of just that, from little kids to adults around the world. There's a gentleman, 72 years old, that I connected with because we share similarities as an adult looking and reflecting back to this. I know you could find it on Amazon Prime, the audiobooks. There's a couple different things. So yeah, that was back and released, and so you can find it. It's again called Listen, the stories we bring with us home to home. And my story, it's a Reader's Digest version of my story. So I'm on page 90 and 91. I'm like smack dead in the middle of the book. But it was really cool because it is a snapshot of my life.
Love that, love that. Well, Denise, above all, I can't thank you enough for coming on, sharing your story. I know that it will enlighten others, as well as help others become stronger. So thank you again for coming on the RNG Radio Show, and definitely looking forward to having you come back.
I would love to. And I maybe get a chance to talk more about Anchor House, because that's right around your neighborhood. So it's in a suitable place. But yeah, I would love to.
Awesome. Thank you for tuning in to the RNG Radio Show. Be sure to like and subscribe for more episodes and future content. If you'd like to learn more, visit us at danielumstead.com. Stay blessed, my fellow millionaires.